Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 348, recorded live on Saturday, August 23rd at 9 o'clock. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Voodu joining us again.
Hey, everyone.
We also have everyone's favorite from DDO Cocktail Hour, Samus Grobo.
I don't know if I'm everyone's favorite. Some people like Lessa.
True.
I don't know who.
Someone at least likes you enough to make a little plushie of you.
That's true. I do have a plushie. That was made by Jaggy, and it's pretty sweet. And she also made a Lessa plushie, and then she also made a Jaggy plushie, which we all got to sign, which is pretty awesome. So
that's pretty sweet. This week's screenshot, 6-pack poses after a battle in Amrath, the 185th screenshot of the week. It's a nice little shot. I can't remember if that's in the town or if that's out in the... I think it's in the town. Maybe if you look up.
That's the quest where you get the mysterious bauble.
Oh, okay, right.
Weapon shipment.
Okay. That would make sense.
It would be super impressive if he actually got the bauble right there and he was like waving his bauble or something.
Baubles. If only I could get one of those baubles. It'd be kind of nice.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. Although it's kind of a fun quest if you run an Elite these days, because they up the spawn rate on Elite, and it scales with how big your party is. So if you get a full party in there on Elite, yeehaw. Lots of kills.
It's a riot.
We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be sometime next weekend, as soon as I figure out. There will be a show next weekend, come hell or high water. I'm not sure what it's going to look like yet, though. And you can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we have a first look at Update 23. And we're going to have a discussion about starting over, which should be kind of fun and interesting and a little different. So let's start with Update 23 in the news. It's just kind of a blanket statement that Lumine came up with Update 23 on Thursday. Let's see. They are going to have an event. No, both events were on Thursday and Friday, so those have already happened. They were going to try and do a raid event to show people the raid, but that didn't happen because their teleporter thing broke. I'm not sure what they did on Friday. But as far as the story goes, greetings, they are hard at work on getting Update 23 ready and wanted to take a minute to give us a sneak peek and a bit of the storyline. As you may know, we are bringing a new story to the Orchard that touches on the events you've experienced in the heroic version, but also expands that story to include the famous resident of Eberron, Lady Vol. Alright, let's see. I have some of the concept art. Let's see if I can get that up here. It's kind of a neat little shot that they gave us. There you go, there's the concept art. That would be Lady Vol. Years after the Black Abbot's defeat, the Emerald Claw have returned to the Orchard of Macabre. They arrived with a large number of cultists and priests of the blood of Vol. Many of the Black Abbot's minions are also returning to the Orchard, and this time they seem to be working together with the Emerald Claw. Though the Silver Flame are alarmed by these events, their attention is divided by an outbreak of lycanthropy in the area. Which I'm not sure how that's going to play in or how that's going to work, but there we go.
Well, we're all going to line up and try to get bitten by werewolves now. Because being a were-creature is awesome, right? You get like +4 to strength, like some DR.
They can forcibly change your alignment.
That's whatever. We're all chaotic evil anyway, so it doesn't matter. I mean, we break into people's houses and murder them in the name of good. I'm air quoting good right now.
It also says the Temple of Vol, the High Priest taunts players that all is going according to Vol's plan, that they were merely pawns when they defeated the Abbot before. So that should be fun. You can go view the stuff on the Mania now. I think they have the quests open except for Fleshmakers. I'm not sure how werewolves are going to play into it, but whatever this chick is, that could be kind of fun. I'm assuming this is going to be the raid boss.
I think they said that's Vol.
It's the Lady Vol.
Yeah, so she's probably a big bad. I mean, I don't know. That's not the artwork we got, I think, at the DDO party. I'm going to have to check it out, because we got some different artwork, I think. Or maybe slightly different.
Possibly. I can tell you just from this picture, she's got wings. I think someone said she's a half dragon. But she's definitely got wings, and she's definitely going to cast some sort of spells. So, yeehaw. Enter at your own risk. Of course, that means everybody will go, because, hey, we're adventurers. All right, let's talk about the release notes. I am going to skim through some of these. I'm not going to read everything. We'll link to the release notes so you can view those if you like. Since I'm not going to read everything, guys, feel free to jump in if I skip something that you want to talk about, or if you have something you do want to talk about. Of course, Epic Orchard of Macabre is now coming out. So we'll have Ghost of Perditions, Temple of Vol, and Inferno of the Damned. You can check out now. The Epic version of the Fleshmaker's Laboratory is not yet available, which means you can't get into the raid. They were going to teleport people, but that didn't work out. They'll probably try that again later. Armor Up. We've talked about this a few times. So I'm just going to read the blanket statement. Update 23 brings a series of changes aimed at improving the ability of melee-focused characters to face some of DDO's toughest challenges and bring increased balance between melee range and spellcasting characters. These changes include the introduction of melee power, ranged power, magical resistance rating, and adjustments to physical resistance rating, among other things. And that's as much as I'm mostly going to say on that. We've talked about that in the past, so everyone should be mostly caught up on that. If you are new to the show, you can look at some of our previous episodes, like the last 5 or so, kind of when we started talking about it. A new amenity is available on Guild's airships called Guild Storage. The amenity is available in several tiers and offers a general chest in addition to a chest that can only be used by Guild officers and leaders. So 2 chests. That's fun. Although, at least in my guild, pretty much everyone's an officer, so there you go. Teleporting is now possible from an airship, so that's kind of fun. And class pets can now get buffs on airships using the amenity bar. Yeehaw! I wonder if they persist, if you make them go away, and if they come back, if those buffs persist or not.
I hope so.
It would certainly make it more convenient. Here's some fun stuff. Glancing blows now work while a character is moving. If the character has the 2-handed fighting feat, and shield bash procs now work while moving as well. Which is kind of funny, because it used to be that Samus, or maybe Voodu, you might remember this. I seem to remember glancing blows working while you were moving originally, and they took that out.
Yeah, it was, because that was basically the only way at the time for your barbarian to survive was to run backwards and use the glancing blows and like a short man. So yeah, that was a thing for a long time. Then they decided that was a bug. So I'm glad that they're bringing back the bugs.
I think part of that had to do with Twitch playing.
Well, I mean, that's the only real skill involved in DDO now, right? I mean, is how well you could Twitch play. Because it's not like character builds really are that skill intensive anymore, and et cetera, et cetera.
There's certainly something being said about knowing how to move while you're fighting stuff. The Scroll of Heal times 10 from the DDO store has been renamed to Gold Seal Scroll of Heal 10 to clarify it provides a better benefit than a regular Scroll of Healing. Someone needs to edit some of these release notes. Jerry, read your release notes. They're not easy to read sometimes. Let's see. The following enhancement trees have been improved. Knight of Chalice, Sacred Defender, and Stalwart Defender. We've kind of talked about those before. The Vanguard tree is coming, but it's not here yet. The Assassin enhancements, Venom Blades, and Shadow Dagger now scale with 200% melee power, so those will be stronger. We'll be seeing a lot more of that stuff, I think, in other trees in the future. The DC for Shadow Dagger also now uses Rogue level rather than half of Rogue level. Yeehaw. Fate Singer, Divine Crusader, Unyielding Sentinel, Grand Master of Flowers, Legendary Dreadnought, Shadow Dancer, Fury of the Wild, and Primal Avatar now grant +5 melee power for every innate ability obtained. And Legendary Dreadnought's Master's Blitz is now a multi-selector, which allows the character to choose either the dodge version, which is as it currently is, and caps as it currently has, or a new version that adds 30 PRR and MMR when it builds up, which I think will probably be a fairly popular choice, since most people hit dodge cap pretty quick. The requirement of using 50 tactical abilities to activate Master's Blitz has been removed. When activated, the ability builds as enemies are hit, and the Destiny's innate abilities each provide a passive and cumulative 5 melee power, and Master's Blitz now builds up to 100 melee power through the changes. which I think, adding those numbers together, I think that ends up being a smaller bonus than it used to be, but I'm not positive on that. There was a comment from one of the other devs, Farguil, in one of the forum posts. They're expecting that some destinies may add more melee power than others for balance, taking in their other abilities into consideration, such as Adrenaline and Fear of the Wild. So they're kind of going to be looking at that. Feats. Overwhelming Critical no longer requires Great Cleave and no longer has a strength requirement. Overwhelming Critical for everybody. You still need Power Attack, but that's pretty easy to get. The two-handed fighting feats. Now the first level gives you +5 melee power. The second level gives you +10, and the third one gets you up to +20. Those are not cumulative. That's what, and they're calling it a combat style bonus. Then single weapon fighting changed a little bit more than that. It has the same 5, 10, 20 combat style bonus to melee power. However, the improved single weapon fighting and the greater single weapon fighting, the bonus from your modifier has been halved. So now you only get up to 150% of your combat, your modifier. This is your ability score modifier. So if you get +5 from dexterity, or we'll say +6 from dexterity, now at greater single weapon fighting you will only get +9 to hit instead of, or +9 to damage instead of +12, which is what it was before. Regarding two-weapon fighting, they posted that they are watching two-weapon fighting closely for balance. They did buff Tempest significantly, reducing cooldowns on 2 key abilities. And as they move more and more toward a system that scales melee power, abilities which use on-hit effects will grow in usefulness, and therefore two-weapon fighting can generate the most benefit from those effects. So kind of looking at that. Shield Mastery and Improved Shield Mastery both give +10 combat style to melee power for a total of +20. Let's see, Hirelings. They did a lot of work on Hirelings, interestingly enough. You can now right-click on your Hirelings command bar portrait and bring up a menu allowing you to set various options, including the ability to toggle various actions. So you have some extra things that you can control there. Hirelings and class pets stand still for a few seconds if their master gets hit by a trap and is not in combat, and so they no longer follow their master into the trap. I'll believe that when I see it. Hirelings and pets will attempt to use nearby rush shrines not in combat, not passive and low on either health or spell points. Hirelings and pets are now willing to go farther from their masters in order to become aggressive. And Hireling and class pets come to me button now simply teleports the Hireling or pet to your character, which will make not going through traps a little easier, but there you go.
So, just to give you a chance to drink some water, when I get hit by a trap, I'm like always like 3/4 or almost to the very, very end of it. So if my hireling is right behind me, isn't that going to intentionally make them stand in the trap for a second?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad that they're trying to do something about the hirelings and traps, but that doesn't feel right to me. Like, I think they should just be immune to trap damage, or like significantly reduced or something. Because that's just something that's hard to computerize, I think, right? I mean, from my point of view, like, unless they know where every trap is and they just want to avoid that area, which I think would defeat the purpose of having the hirelings, like, that interaction, it seems difficult. I think they should just, like, hirelings take 3/4 trap damage and move on.
The function where the come to me button is a teleport button instead of having them walk to you should make that a lot easier to control.
That would help a lot too, yeah.
So you can just park them, run through the trap, then go. So it requires you to know where the traps are, but
That's
I don't
true.
care with that.
I also like how these hirelings that we're going to rent now from level 1 to level 27 or whatever can just teleport from spot A to spot B. I can't do that. I would love to be able to do that. Be like, I want to teleport over there. Kaboo.
Teleport to party member.
Exactly. That'd be so sweet.
Get a bracelet of friends.
Well, that doesn't work inside the quest. Outside the quest, who cares? I'm not running into traps outside in the city. I'm running into traps in the dungeons. That's no bueno. All right. You got to drink now.
The Eldritch card crunchers can no longer be put into the classic anniversary bag, but can be placed into banks. I'm not sure why they're making that change. I'm assuming so that all of the cards fit, but there you go. Items which are not bankable can no longer be placed into bags. Remaining unconsumed saga. Skip that one. We'll do that later. Combat Mastery and Exceptional Combat Mastery effects on items have been renamed to Insightful Combat Mastery to better reflect what they do. It's a text change only, as these effects were always insight bonuses. The Shield of Mourning is now a light shield and offers a variety of benefits. If you're interested in that, you can go look in the show notes. This is not actually in the show notes, but I pulled this and kind of made it my own from other comments. They're introducing mythic items. Mythic items are very rare, but usually more powerful versions of certain epic items. So some people were finding that in some of the new loot that's coming out. So it's just a rarer version of the items. A new way to have varying tiers of loot. But I think
because that worked out so well the last couple times I did it.
Well, I think this is a little more balanced in that you can get it at any difficulty level, but you're more likely to get it at higher difficulty still. And the other items, they didn't appear to be that much better than the normal items. I think, if I remember correctly, there's the epic Minos helm. I think it was like an extra 5 hit points and maybe a couple % extra fortification. I don't remember what else was on it, but it wasn't spectacularly better, but it was a little bit better. So people will be more likely to be able to get the kind of the lower tier, and it's also not going to be divided by difficulty level, which I think is an improvement. Because in the past they've done something like this where you could only get the normal version on normal. But you can never get the elite version on normal. Now you can get the mythic version at any level. You're just more likely to get it at a higher difficulty level. So.
But it looks like the mythic is like an extra shiny. So like you're gonna get a normal on normal, you're gonna get a hard on hard, but then you could get an extra shiny version at any of that difficult. I don't know. I think it's cluttering the loot, and they should strip that back down. But maybe people really liked it, and there was this huge outcry when they stopped doing it. But I don't believe it. I would like to see some data on that.
It's certainly a decent middle ground, at least. I think it's better than the system they had been, the normal hard elite system, because you can get anything at any difficult level. You should have a better chance.
I guess that's true, but it still just feels like you're making, a heroic version of something and then 5 bad versions of it, and then you're making you're making a level 28 version and then 8 bad versions of it for epic levels. I mean, I get it, but I don't know. It's very wishy-washy to me.
Why are you saying 8 versions of it?
Well, I don't actually. I'm very ill, so I'm going to go to default to my exaggerate mode because I went to Gen Con and I got the bird swine flu, whatever it is. But like if there's an epic normal, an epic heroic, or an epic hard, and then epic elite, and then there's the super shiny version of each of those. Right, that's a bunch of extra versions. That's just bad.
Right.
So.
But that's not what's happening now.
That's what this says.
There's only 2 versions. There's the normal version, and then there's the mythic version.
So this breakdown right here, where it says the Shield of Mourning.
That's something different.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm just reading this example, trying to follow in with the show notes. Okay, never mind. So there's
the Shield of Mourning. The Shield of Mourning is an existing shield that has 6 different versions that they are making into a light shield and tweaking some of the stuff that's on it.
That's already too many words.
The mythic thing is something that they're introducing in the Orchard, the Epic Orchard. So there's the normal epic version, and then there's a rarer mythic version.
Okay, so there's only 2 versions of each thing. So you have one good version and a bad version.
You have one good version and one slightly better version.
You also have like a glass of water that's half full, I take it? Yeah, see? He holds up his glass of water that's half empty. Alright, it's fine. We'll just agree that this should probably not happen and move on.
I'm going to say I don't care if it does or not, or at least I can see the argument of it not happening, but I like this better than the normal hard elite tier
and the tiered
system.
loot? Yeah. See, I was looking at this and I was thinking it was still going to be tiered loot also. So I apologize. I mixed my, I don't know, what do you call those little circle things? Pivots? I mixed my pivots and the show notes together, so I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah, so just for clarification, there's the epic version and a mythic version. So there's two versions available at all difficulty levels. That's how it's supposed to work. Let's see. Monster AI has been improved to make them more efficient at filtering out things that they are not interested in to improve performance in densely populated areas. Please, yes. Beholders now have the... This is interesting. Beholders now have the ability to use a refined, or quote, refined anti-magic field which only removes beneficial effects. This is currently only being used in the new raid. I think if that gets implemented everywhere else, that's going to be interesting. I've always found it's always been fairly beneficial for beholders that if they stone you, when they turn and look at you, the flesh to stone goes away because they dispel it. It's going to be kind of interesting if that doesn't happen anymore.
Now, see, in pen and paper, that's one of the balancing effects of a beholder. I mean, because the beholder is like crazy strong, so that would be a big change, actually.
Well, and they can't, in pen and paper, they can't shoot their eye beams in their anti-magic field, but they can turn it off.
Right, they can close their eye,
and then they can shoot in front of them. Let's see, Quells can now suppress divine spell-like abilities, and they ought to be a lot smarter about who gets intercession. So I think that was basically to say that favored soul, look out, as well as spell-like abilities. Let's see, XP bonus for disarming traps has been increased to 10, 20, and 30%. Yay, more XP. Any character level 20 or above can now receive any level 20 or above quest and enter any dungeon with a base challenge rating of 20 or higher. This removes previous conditions that could prevent low-level, epic-level characters from entering a much higher epic-level dungeon.
Thank you.
Also, as Jeff pointed out on his blog, there is no power leveling penalty in Epic. I think you can still get a over-level penalty if you're high enough. So if you're running a level 20 quest with a 28, you can still get an over-level penalty, but there's no power level penalty, which is nice. In Crystal Cove, you can now exchange doubloons for a different doubloon. The exchange ratio is 7-to-1 in any direction.
All right, please put in cheering here.
Yay! New gems have been added to allow for creation of new items. They will, which is kind of funny because the thing goes up to level 30 and they're adding gems that appear in 20 to 23 instances. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but there you go. And then they have added level 24 version of Crystal Cove items, and items also have up to 3 tiers of upgrades. So that'll be fun to see when that comes around. I'm going to mention this note just because I have no idea what it means. In Epic Crucible, Daggertooth can now be tricked into approaching the poisoned treasure. What poisoned treasure?
When you take the swim to get the last horn,
yep,
there's a poisoned treasure there that if you touch, I'm trying to remember what you get. I think you get like a blindness treasure poison. Is that right, Voodoo? You might remember.
I'm the guy that never does the swim.
Oh, okay. So, but yeah, you can get poisoned if you click on the treasure when you're trying to find the key, and yeah, that's kind of cool actually. I mean, anytime they add in these flavor things inside the quest that could actually be cool, I'm a big fan of that. Although it's weird that they're doing it to the Crucible now.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know what's up with that, or maybe it was an option that was supposed to be working and never was.
That's probably what it is. That'd be my guess, and it showed up on some bug report, and they finally got to it. That's a high priority bug.
Inferno of the Dam, there is now an additional Rest and Resurrection Shrine in this quest on both Heroic and Epic difficulties. Aww, I kind of liked it the way it was. You had to do it right to get the Rest Shrine.
Not noob-friendly the way it is, though.
True. If you don't know how to get to that shrine the first time, you're not going to get a shrine in the entire quest, and that can be a little bit tricky. If you want to know how to do it, go back and watch our Inferno of the Damned episode. I did a walkthrough of that a while back. Here's some fun changes. Runes of the Thrennel. The following quests have had their XP changed. Enter the Gate Chamber. The base XP has been increased by 2,000 plus XP. Escort the Expedition. The base XP of the quest was lowered by 1,700. I'm not sure why, although it was a good quest for XP. I kind of wish it stayed that way. It felt kind of right, actually, to me. The Gate Chamber, the base XP of the quest has been lowered by 420. That's the really short one. That's really bad.
Yes, boo.
Wouldn't that leave it with like 300 base XP?
Probably.
It's not a very high quest.
Ridiculously low. I can't believe they lowered it already.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that. The Missing Expedition, the base XP of the quest has been increased by 1,300 XP, which, see, that's the first. Is that the first one, or is that?
Yeah, I think that's the first one.
The east one.
Yeah, that one's also pretty quick.
If you know how to do it right, or know how to do it right, it's
Right.
really quick. And here's where it gets really fun. Hold for reinforcements. The base XP of the quest has been increased by 1,200.
Still not enough.
In addition, there is a new optional objective worth 50% of the base, and the quest no longer has a failure condition. Coil now only suffers incapacitating damage once he is below 0 hit points. Players are now awarded optional XP for completing the dungeon without Coil being incapacitated, which would be 50% of the base.
That's alright.
Suck it, Coil. I'm going to let him die every time and laugh on through the night.
Yeah, at least you can't fail it. The XP is still kind of low for a hard 15-minute quest.
Let's
But
say 15-minute quest. If they would have sped up the spawn rate and lowered the time, I think I would have been a lot happier. But
we get what we get. At
I'll
least
take it.
You can't get to the end and fail anymore, so that's nice.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Although I noticed that Escort the Expedition still has a fail. They didn't take the fail out of that one. Go figure. That's the one where he has to run through traps, too. Temple of Deathworm and Fire on Thunder Peak have had some adjustments made to improve performances. Please, yes. The Pirates of Thunder Sea Heroic Saga is now repeatable and on a 3-day raid timer to do so. Map note for sagas is now an orange chalice. That's nice. Bags and bank UIs are no longer exclusionary. So maybe they...
That's the one that my guilds are like super happy about. I don't know if anyone else.
It's certainly annoying when you're trying to go back and forth between them. I understand why they did it to try and stop some duping stuff. So hopefully that's fixed. But as long as it's not, I would rather see duping squashed and have that inconvenience than the other way, than have it come back and have duping go rampant again. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it. The Who list will now load the first time you select the tab rather than during character login. I feel like we keep going back and forth on that. Yeah, it helps with the loading times. I think that because they did that for a while and then maybe it changed and they didn't want it to, or I don't know what happened. There are 2 known issues that I saw that I will mention. Completing spies in the house while running the Sentinel's quest chain will cause the end guy not to grant end reward list for completing the quest chain. Oops. Although realistically, his end reward isn't that great unless you're like running it at heroic levels. And this one's funny. Magical resistance rating affects incoming healing. Oops. I'm sure that we'll see that fixed, but that was kind of funny. There is a rune arm currently planned for the new raid, and it's different from any existing rune arm. I saw a picture of it in the loot threads, and from the picture, the shot picture that they have on all the rune arms, it looks like it's going to be the little knife tossy thing from Sharati Champion. It's that same logo, so that should be pretty fun. It's also a pretty nice rune arm. It's got a lot of impulse stuff on it. And then just to say it, Cordovan came in and said flagging for the epic raid will be much more straightforward than heroic flagging, and heroic flagging is not necessary to run epic content. Yay. Alright, the big bug. Came from Cordovan. Hello, we want to let you all know about a change coming in Update 23 regarding an earlier bug with Saga XP gems, so you have enough time to prepare for this fix. When Update 22 was released, there was a bug that allowed people to retain the XP gems they received through completing sagas. Patch 3 arrived in early August and corrected the bug, but players who had already collected these gems in inventory did not have the gems automatically be consumed. However, it is necessary to have these gems to be automatically consumed to promote the integrity of the game and to make sure this bug gets properly cleaned up, so that players can have the proper expectation about the way Saga XP gems are supposed to work. Additionally, other items that should be automatically consumed, such as Guild Renown, Astral Shards, purchased from the DDO store, will be automatically consumed. So, when Update 23 is released, all remaining Saga XP gems and other such items will be automatically consumed when the character with the gems in their inventory first logs into the game. If you don't want that to happen, consume it between now and the release of Update 23, which will be sometime in the future. They didn't actually say when. So, there you go. Anything else stand out to you guys about Update 23?
I haven't combed through the notes as much, but I will just make one comment. I really like the fact that those XP gems sit in your backpack. I totally get why they don't want to do that, but I would kind of implore them to reconsider that, maybe with like a 50% cut to the XP, like one that you can eat now for the full value, or one that can sit in your backpack for like 50% value, because that was really cool. I mean, not that we all don't enjoy playing those low levels, and we'd all like to just skip right up there. But when you're on your 87th TR on the particular character, grinding out a life you don't care for, being able to stock up with some of those XP gems is just amazing. I think it's one of the best things they've done for the game, for that kind of, for long-time players, and I thought that was a really cool thing, and then it turns out it was a bug this whole time, so I shouldn't be surprised, because everything I think is really cool sometimes is a bug, so I just throw that out there real quickly in the event that someone's actually listening, which they usually are.
I actually said the exact same thing when Jerry was on the show.
Oh, bollocks. That means I don't listen to the show often enough.
That's okay. It was kind of a little one-liner. We had a short discussion on it, but yeah, I agree. I would love to see. I would kind of like to see more options from Sagas just in general for the end reward list. I still think they should put Comms of Valor in them.
I don't disagree with that.
The only reason that they took Comms of Valor out was because when they were introducing Comms of Valor, it was the only place they were, and everyone went, "Wait, that's not cool. We don't like that." So they took them out of Sagas and put them in Quest Reward list. I always thought they should have put them in Quest Reward list, but leave them in Sagas. Even Heart Seeds, something like that, for at least for the epic ones, that always seemed pretty reasonable.
I think, didn't they add Heart Seeds to the Sagas?
No, that's in Quest Rewards if you're capped.
Okay. Okay.
Which is a great change. I love that change.
Well, all I know is Tobrel had mentioned the other day that he had gotten some Heart Seeds somewhere, and I thought it was from a Saga. So, but it very clearly could have been a quest reward.
Yeah, any quest you complete that you would get combinations of Valor for, if you're capped when you complete the quest, it'll give them to you. It does. I tried to trick it. I was hoping that I was really close to cap, and I ran like 3 quests, and then I finished them, went and leveled, and went and collected. They didn't give me Heart Seeds.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, it wouldn't have made a difference. It didn't. I was hoping it would have, but
3 more. I mean, that's 6 more Heart Seeds. That's like, that's like 12 quests right there.
Yeah, but I was kind of trying to gank the system, so.
Well,
it just didn't work. They were smarter. They thought of it.
Nothing wrong with ganking the system every once in a while.
Bonus days through August 24th. 25% heroic XP, only heroic. Store sales. These are through. I didn't write it down. What would that be? 29th, I think, of August. 20% off of augments, jewelers' toolkits, cosmetic armors, cosmetic hats, helms, and headwear. You can also get 50 stack of Omni Dust with the code DUST21, 1 per account. I have a bunch of those. I never use them.
Omni Dust? I like the Omni Dust well enough. But I will throw out, if you're not a big fan of the cosmetic armors and hats and stuff, there's some really great ones, especially the last couple of new patches there. I know that our little static group, a lot of people have switched into the swashbuckler-esque ruffled shirt look. So there's been some really cool ones. You should definitely check them out if you're just like dead set against that kind of stuff. It might be worthwhile to check it out.
I love Omnispell Dust, and I learned this way later than I should have, so maybe there's somebody listening that doesn't know this. You have to put the Omnispell Dust after your regular spell components. But if it's before, it will use the Omnispell Dust first. But if it's after, then it will only use the Omnispell Dust if you run out of your regular spell components.
Which is why I never use it, because I plug them in my inventory later. Yeah, if you didn't know, and this is true for Thieves' Tools and spell and component ingredients, when you cast the spell, it pulls from whatever stack is closest to the first tab. So it starts in your first tab in the upper left, and then it goes down like you'd read. And it does that through each successive tab. Usually what I do is I put on my last tab, I put my my spell ingredients all the way back there, so that if I, for some reason, end up acquiring more than my stack can hold, say I just bought a bunch of, I just maxed out my ingredients, and like the next quest I pull some, it'll pull from the smaller stack first, and then I put the Omni stuff at the end, but I usually never get that far, because I'm pretty good about watching that. But there you go. Thieves' Tools I don't usually pay that close attention to, but let's see. Community news. The 106th Chronicle Fundamental is having a Turbine Point giveaway. Enrique is looking at the districts of Stormreach in a blog post. The Heroes of Hinfolk are holding a trivia event on Galanda today. Let's see, the 11 a.m. Eastern Time you've already missed out on, but there is one at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Prizes will be awarding. Let's see, Stormforged is a new guild on Wayfinder, looking to expand. The guild has a website and is looking for anyone interested in having fun playing DDO. I'm kind of wondering if that typo is intentional or if that was there's an extra H in Storm. Let's see. The comment for the week. If you were a mimic, how would you disguise yourself, Samus?
If I was a mimic, I would probably be like a pink bunny slipper. I think that'd be the way to go. Or perhaps a very large yellow hat. Half, 6 of one, half a dozen of, maybe both. Maybe 2 Samuses.
All right. Voodoo, what would you disguise yourself as?
I'm assuming that adult toys are inappropriate,
Probably.
so I'm just gonna say cucumber.
I changed my mind and I go with Voodoo's answer. That's much better. It's for the wrong show, but I like where your head is at.
You guys are terrible. Let's see. If I was going to be a mimic, I'm going to go with dice. Some shiny dice.
Nice.
You get some mileage out of that. People who play role-playing games, they like their dice. And everyone likes shiny, cool-looking dice.
When we were at Gen Con, as we were packing up and leaving, there was, I don't know, probably these 2 feet square D6s. I think they were soft. I don't know. They were like fuzzy dice. They were big, bright pink. And we were just walking down the corner, and I pointed at the weapon. I'm like, those are some pretty sweet big dice. We're just walking down. And then all of a sudden, this girl comes around the hallway, just walking, mind her own business. And you could see it on her face. She looked over, she glanced over, she saw the dice. And she just like dropped everything and ran down the hallway, arms flailing in the air, and like, I love these dice, and jumped on them. So yeah, I mean, gamers.
Just for clarification, was this girl named Laurel? Not Laurel. Lessa?
No. This was a complete and total stranger. I said Lessa was walking with us at the time, but this complete and total stranger, and you just saw the look of like, ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, giant fuzzy pink dice, just like, blah, 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 blah. And just like her reaction was just like run and jump on them, and it was amazing. They just put this. I wish I could have recorded it. Like if I had Google Glasses, right then I'd been like, shit, did you record that? It would have been sweet.
The DDOcast got a shout out for our healing episode last week. DDO Gamer looked at an upcoming change in update 23 that was about the epic leveling stuff. Videos this week, there was a community update video. You can watch for that. I think the only thing that kind of worth note is Cordovan mentioned that the weekly Wednesday stream is expecting to have some devs in the near future talking about update 23, so that'll be kind of fun. They went to Shadowwrath for the weekly Wednesday stream. They went to New Invasion, Sins, and Weapon of Shipment. I kind of want to see how many times Jerry died in New Invasion at the end. Summer Fling went to Gwilyn's Stand. Lots of fun there. Let's see, blogs. Since we talked about swashbucklers a couple weeks ago, Steiner Davian on his blog talked about a Purple Dragon Knight swashbuckler. I think he was going 16 bard, 2 rogue, 2 fighter, which is a splash that we had talked about on our show. Let's see, kind of talked about that. DDOcast news. Episode 350 will be live, or at least I'll record it, on Khyber on September 6th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can have an LFM up, and you can come say hi and be on the show and ask anything, maybe ask a question that you always wanted to ask, and we'll try and answer it as best as I can. But that will be open for you. Let's see, gaming news. Gen Con. Why don't you give us we have Samus here. Give us your review of Gen Con.
Well, Gen Con's always a blast. If you don't get an opportunity to go, well, that you don't have an excuse to not go. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana. The majority of us try to go on even years. Some people get to go every year, like Jeff Hanna normally goes every year, but because of the wedding, he took many vacations instead of going to Gen Con. So if you can, and you're looking for a big vacation, I'd highly recommend Gen Con in 2016. I'll be there. Lessa will be there most likely. It'll be a party. All right, so what Gen Con basically is, they call it the best 4 days of gaming. And in my opinion, it probably is true. You have everything there from board games to dice games to board games. They have giant versions of games, video games, Magic tournaments. I think they had Call of Duty World Championships this year while we were there. So literally, if there's a game that you want to play, it's there. Now, that being said, it's not just for playing games. There's a ton of other activities there for your significant other. So if you're like a gamer and your wife is not, or vice versa, there's ample stuff for them to do. Everything from nerd-related stuff, like this year I made my own leather top hat, which I tweeted or I Facebooked a picture. I'll be on a blog post here pretty soon at samusgrow.com. I'll put my pictures up. And that was pretty cool. My wife did like a couple of chainmail things. I did some chainmail things with her. My son and I did we created a faux leather magic box for like our magic cards. My wife took a couple of cake decorating classes and cupcake decorating classes, and then she also went to intermediate rope bondage class. So there's everything you could. Oh yeah, I just saw his head turn. There's literally everything there that you could possibly want, and then some. So even though it's labeled the best 4 days in gaming, it really is like anything that you want to know about, you could probably find there. And if not, maybe you should be teaching it. If there's something that you want to do and it's not there, you can sign up and teach. Like 2 years ago when I knew Lessa was coming, we held a live DDO cocktail hour. We got the panel, we opened it up, we probably had, I think there's like 35 or so people there. We did a live show, bam. 1 year when the Trents still had DDOcast, they did a thing there. So if you want to teach something because you can't find it, I bet you're going to find some people who are interested in doing it. That said, there are, of course, some amazing standouts there, like True Dungeon is always real popular. And for those of you who don't know what True Dungeon is, basically it's a little bit more LARPy, where you're your character, but they actually have full-size 3D dungeons and puzzles and fights and stuff in the room for you to do. So there's that. And then, of course, there's Werewolf, which is, I think, the only reason why my son goes to Gen Con, to be perfectly honest. Werewolf is a card game, but not really. It's everyone gets a card, and they sit in a circle, and on that card it tells you what your role is, if you're a villager or a werewolf or one of the special classes. Let's say classes. We're all DDO people here. We know what classes are. And by you are trying to, if you're a werewolf, you're trying to eat all the villagers, and if you're the villagers, you're trying to catch all the werewolves. So basically, Every night, the werewolves eat somebody. Every day, the villagers hang somebody until the werewolves outnumber the villagers in a significant amount. And I'll tell you, that is probably the most fun game on the planet.
I love werewolf.
Yeah, see, exactly. People who know werewolf are like, yeah, hell yeah, werewolf, let's do this. And it's great. And even if you don't go to Gen Con and do it, you can play werewolf anywhere. I mean, it's not hard. You can get copies of the game. You can take playing cards and just write werewolf on them to get started, see if you like it. Definitely recommend checking that out. I definitely recommend Gen Con, and we will definitely be there in 2 years. So, is there anything specific?
What were the 3 coolest things you saw while you were there, or did?
3 coolest things there. Well, I'd say the DDO party was pretty sweet. I did get an open bar, which is pretty awesome, so I like that. Man, that's tough. There's some sweet expo booths, mostly in the t-shirt variety. I really couldn't probably narrow it down from more than that. And then the art section, I didn't even touch on. I really was really impressed. A lot of the stuff that we actually got this year was from the artist section. Every year they usually get, I don't know, maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen artists to come with their work, and they have full-size prints to various degrees. And it was absolutely ridiculously great this year. I mean, you could just walk through there and just be amazed by the talent. And you could buy the prints if you wanted. So, I mean, those are probably the 3 things that I was most impressed with. But then I'm going to add one for you. The thing that I missed the most, the one thing I regret not doing this year at Gen Con, the writer of the Harry Dresden series was like, not really the keynote, but like the featured speaker this year. And now I'm blanking on his name. I had it a second ago. But he was there giving a speech and a Q&A section. And I didn't make it because I had another event going on at the time that I had already booked. But Tobrell and a bunch of my other friends went, and they said it was absolutely ridiculous. Good. So if that's one of the things that I actually miss, and that's, you know, a downside of Gen Con, because there's so much good stuff going on that while you're having fun over here, there's probably something you'd also be having fun with over here, and you're like, oh, which are the 2 things do I want to do? You know, so it's so good. I can't stress it enough. If you can get to Gen Con, go.
One of these days I should go.
You should definitely go. And it's not even that expensive. Sleeping and eating are probably the 2 most expensive parts of Gen Con.
What do the tickets run?
The tickets are only like $100 or maybe $200. And then the actual events, they range anywhere from free to, I think True Dungeon this year was $35, which is cheaper than it was. Like, I think it was $48 a couple of years ago. So I think True Dungeon actually, which is one of the more expensive events, that actually got cheaper.
Yeah, of course the thing with tickets is if you actually buy the ticket versus if you have to buy it from the scalper.
Well, and you don't have to. It doesn't close. You can walk up the day of the con and buy a pass. They don't close out. There was 55,000 plus gamers there in those 4 days of Gen Con, and you could walk up on any day of the con and buy a 1-day pass and be allowed to go in. It's not like
PAX.
The PAX that we're going to talk about next. That only has so many tickets.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate because they go really fast. Speaking of PAX, PAX Prime is next weekend here in Seattle. If you are coming, we will be gathering for buffs on the 29th. That's the Friday at 9 p.m. at the Rock Bottom Brewery. It's pretty close to the convention center. I think it's maybe 8 blocks away, if that. Nice little bar. So yeah, if you are coming, please come join us. 9 p.m. Rock Bottom Brewery. You can get some swag. Jerry's sending some swag my direction. So.
Do you have a forum or anything to like let
There's a
people?
forum post, yeah.
There's a forum post? Cool.
And it's linked in the show notes, and also put some on Twitter. If you are looking for more information, if you can poke me through Twitter, which is probably the best way to communicate the day of or anything like that. Just if you're looking for information or if we're still going on, that's probably the best way to do it. Or you can email ddocast@gmail.com. Both of those should work pretty good. Other than that, if you're going to PAX Prime, have fun. Enjoy Seattle. We've been having some good weather, so you should, if you're outside at all, you should have a nice view of the city. All right, I think that's it for the news. Let's talk about so our roundtable discussion. This was kind of something that Samus really wanted to do, and I think it's a pretty interesting discussion. We're going to talk about starting over, and at least my interpretation of what we're meaning by that is you go to a new server and kind of start anew. Is that kind of what you're kind of thinking, Samus?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Thanks to that Spring Fling thing that Lessa kind of talked me into trying, I really, really like it. I think I was kind of in a down slump in DDO for a while, and I don't think that's a big secret. I think a lot of people have figured that out. And part of it is I just kind of gotten to a place where all I'm doing is epic TRing Samus over and over and over again. And I enjoy it. I find it to be a lot of fun, but there's no more new for me right there. But going to a new server where I have nothing, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I make this stuff work, and what can I get, and I don't have any money, how do I make that happen? What gear should I try to go get? Should I just try finding like certain name loot? I have found that to be extremely rewarding. And I don't know how many other people are kind of in that like mind, but we can talk about that on DDO Cocktail Hour. But I think people's eyes kind of glaze over when we talk about real stuff on the Cocktail Hour. I think they just want me to make dick and fart jokes the whole time, which is awesome because that lets me save real conversations for you. So I'm really would like to get into this because I'd like to hear what other people's point of view. Because like I said, this is my first time to do it. Lessa has been a server hopper forever. So she's already pre-jaded to this idea of server hopping. To me, this is my first real try. I mean, I did a little bit with the DDO Build Guild back when they were going, but yeah, this is a big shock.
I certainly I did it once. I was on.
But you were just in an experimental phase, right?
Well, yeah. So I started playing the game, and then the person who I started playing with, and kind of like one or two of the people that I kind of really got in with, and it was like for the first 6 months, and then those guys kind of petered out and stopped playing. But I was still really enjoying the game, but it kind of felt a little dead. So, and first character was not very good because I didn't really know what I was doing and tried to make it work. And I kind of decided to switch servers and kind of start over. And I mean, that's where other than the server merge, that's kind of where I've been ever since. But so I did do it the one time, kind of as just a fresh start. I hadn't built up that server very much, but that was kind of my experience doing it. I don't know if Voodu, if you've ever switched servers.
I haven't, but I did something just this past week that just made me appreciate the challenge. I hadn't started a new tune in years, but I wanted to make a video series on my Ginger Spice build, and I wanted to do lower level content. I wasn't about the TR Ginger Spice, so I decided to make a first lifer using that build. People would ask about the first life viability of the build, and just using a first life tune for the first time in years made me appreciate that challenge. But I was still using money and stuff. So I think going to a new server and overcoming those challenges, I think could be a lot of fun for a veteran player.
Yeah, that's just it. It's like a system shock almost. You're like, it's like, whoa, I didn't even think about this, and whoa, how can I make this happen? Like, we're saving up. I'm literally saving up, like every gold piece, every platinum piece I can, to get the bad bags out of the general vendor, like in House Jurassica, just to get that really, really bad green bag. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so sweet.
You know, and it's kind of like, you know, we do permadeath events in my guild once in a while, where usually it's you can only use what you start with and find. And it's an awesome challenge when you find, like, what you would otherwise feel is crappy loot. You're like, oh my god, I got this +3 sword, you know?
Exactly,
So you get that same kind of effect.
and I think that's the key feeling to this whole discussion. So with that in mind, would you like to lead us into the actual discussion?
Yeah, so we'll just kind of talk about some things to think about when you do that. The first thing I want to talk about is favor rewards versus account perks. So there's a lot of things that you unlock via favor, but when you do that, it only accounts for that server. So if you go to a new server, you're not going to have that. So things like 32-point builds, Artificer, Favored Soul, Veteran Status, all that stuff, if you haven't bought it in the store, you're not going to have access to it on the other server, which is kind of something to think about. You can, of course, buy it in the store and then you have it. Or if you've already bought it in the store, you can have it. I know when I switched servers, the way that I did it, and granted, this was before there was the store option of buying 32-point builds. What I did is I took my first character all the way up to 1,750 favor. I think favor cap back then was maybe like 3,500, if that, maybe 3,000. So 1,750 was a challenge. It might have even been less than that because cap was only. This is before Favored Soul, and cap was only 12 at the time I switched. So, but what I did was I went all the way to 1,750 favor and then unlocked 32-point builds. That's kind of more a strategy if like you're switching to a new server and you're really going for like really moving to that server. I think kind of what Sam was talking about, not necessarily something you'd be looking to do. I don't know what was your kind of. Did you buy 32-point builds, or you just running a 28, or how did you approach that?
Honestly, I don't know. I think I'm actually running a 28-point build because originally, you know, I was just going on the assumption that I'm going to play this one character on this one server this one time. You know, it was a limited run static group, but I'm really getting into this enjoyment of playing with these limited resources. So it's quite viable that, I mean, I don't think I would permanently move to another server or even vacation there outside of a static group, but like I know Steiner Davian did. Steiner Davian now, his home server is Galanda, and his guild over there became less and less active and turned into more of a static group. So he uprooted everything and moved to Sarlona to join the defense guild basically full time outside of his static group. So I mean, is it possible that I would fall in love with the server in such a way that I would move permanently to another server? That's a really crazy question. And if I, you know, right now I'm leaning towards that. Now I've got my one character. I'm going to get to the whatever favor on I happen to get on. And I think if I were to start completely fresh, I would do the same thing. I think that's a smart move. As long as that first character you build is something you're going to enjoy for that 1,750 favor, because that can be a lot. It's not a lot.
Certainly less than it used to be.
Right. It's not a lot once you reach a certain benchmark. Like when you get to the 20s or 22, 24, somewhere in that ball, that's very easy to come up with 1,750 favor. But that's a long ways to grind a level 28 character just to get 1,750 favor so you could roll something you really like. So, I mean, that's it.
It was, when I did that, it was my main character. Right? That was it was just my first character. It wasn't a throwaway character. It was a character I played, and that character was a 28-point build until they introduced True Reincarnation. And it was the first one I true reincarnated because it was 6 build points.
Yeah, and that then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god. See, like I remember when I first started, I rolled up Samus and I loved him, and then I finally unlocked 1,750 favor. And the first thing I did was I not re-rolled him, but I re-rolled another character that was exactly the same, except he had 32 build points. And there was created Samus Bot, and I played Samus Bot all the way up. And then I ended up playing Samus Bot more than I played Samus, and it was like, this isn't cool. This isn't what I signed on for. And then, so at the time, the only way you could remake something like that and upgrade their thing was to move them to another server. So I spent whatever it was at the time to move Samus to another server so I could re-roll a 32-point version of Samus. And that's the Samus I'm currently playing on Sarlona. So I think Thalanis maybe is my original 30 or 28 point build of Samus sitting there with like all the sweet gear at the time that's bound to him. But I mean, it's probably pretty janky now. But I mean, that's a real challenge. What you're gonna do? How attached are you gonna get to the 28 character? Should you buy 32 points first? Should you? Are you planning on doing a TR right away? Those are all questions if you're going to move to a new server.
It should be noted that if you do a lesser reincarnate, once you have 32 points unlocked, it does bump you up to 32 points too. So that first character, it might start at 28 points, but it's really easy to get up to the next, up to 32 points. Just to mention that. I should also mention Drow is technically a favor reward too. I think you can buy it, but it's only 400 points, so I wouldn't buy that.
What kind of reward is that, though, really? You had to play a -2 con race? Come on.
Purple boobs.
And you have to be pointy-eared? Come on. That's just not cool. That's no bueno. Be a dwarf or a halfling and just be the superior races.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's also like veteran status or favorite slow artificer. I would say if you really want to play an artificer and you're starting over, I would buy that.
I would agree.
Because you have to unlock that with House C favor, which you're going to need to get a character up to about pretty much level 20 at least before you really can start getting that very effectively. Veteran status, I don't really find a big enough bonus to pay for vet status 2 over vet status 1, and vet status 1 is only 1,000 favor, so that's not too bad. You can get vet status 2, I think, by 3,000 favor on a server. But at the same time, if you bought one of the expansion packs, you might already have veteran status.
So you probably do.
I think it was already included. I think both were included in between the two of them, but I'm not positive on that.
That sounds right.
Speaking of artificers, where are they all these days? Is everybody just playing Twitch tunes, so they're not playing their arties? Because on Sarlona, it just seems like they're not there anymore.
I have one that I play. He's not my front runner that I'm playing right now, but I play him. I like him.
I pull mine out very rarely because I'm really into the Monk Archer Samus build right now. But Samus Bot is currently an Artificer, and I really like him. So I mean, it's weird they get kind of put to this secondary status.
I think everybody like you is playing their Munchers right now.
I mean, it's kind of the best thing to play right now, isn't it? I mean, not to get too derailed, but if I'm not standing in combat and I'm still doing, similar to melee DPS, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a much of a downside.
I'm going to take the rabbit trail one step further. Did you guys see the new version of the Quiver of Alacrity, the epic version?
I have not yet, but it sounds like I'm going to have a massive erection. Let me adjust my seat.
Wait, what is this -50 concentration and +5? It was just confusing.
So it has on it, it's a little bit better than it is right now, but it comes with -50 to concentration.
It's a little better than it is now, which means I can use it at level 1.
No,
it's ridiculous.
It has like haste, and I think it has like basically permanent haste on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it has -50 to concentration. And it's kind of a sharp slap in the face of Monkchers.
Yeah, I'll just keep using my old one.
I just thought it was kind of funny. Anyways, moving back to what we're talking about. So let's talk about. So it's kind of like some of the strategy stuff. Let's talk about things that you'd be looking to do when you move servers. I'm gonna go reverse order where I typed it in the show notes. We'll start with gearing up. What's kind of your approach, Samus, to gearing up your character here?
Basically, I figured the best odds for me to find anything that I thought was good or quality was to go after named items inside quests that I thought we could get done. So, like, I really probably irritated the group with my let's run Church in the Cult. I think it's Church in the Cult. Because I really wanted the silver longbow. Because when you don't have anything, the silver longbow is like the sweetest bow on earth for like ever.
That bow
right?
has always been a really good low-level bow.
Exactly. So I was like, every time they're like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. What to do?" I'm like, "Let's do this. Let's do Church in the Cult." And they're like, "Ah." And I finally got him to do Church in the Cult. And I think I didn't pull it, but another character did. And he's like, "Hey, bro, I know I'm tired of running Church in the Cult. Here, have this bow." And I'm like, "Yay!" But we did the same kind of things with. Jiminy Christmas, like all the other quests. Like as soon as I hit level 9, I jumped into Relic of a Sovereign Past, just on casual mode, which took forever by yourself on the completely undergeared, underpowered character, like stealthing your way through the quest. And then all of a sudden you're like, I got all these options. So that was great. The Cove worked out really well for me. I made the Stalwart Trinket, which is really killer. So basically, I focused on anything that I could get by an end reward chain that we were going to do anyway, or anything that's a quest end reward that drops in the chest that I felt like I could talk people into giving me. Like, hey, you're not going to use this bow, or hey, you're not going to use this armor, or etc. I really felt like those are the two big things that I kind of focused on. Like, I mean, did I do something wrong? Does anyone have a better idea how to find the correct kind of loot?
I would say definitely don't stress out too much, particularly at lower levels. This is kind of been my tactic. Generally, when my true incarnate, I don't keep a lot of gear. I pretty much just use whatever falls my way. There's a couple of things that I kind of look out for, like a good weapon, so you can run Dolaras effectively without using the tricky leg. But other than that, I mean, focus on. I think particularly because what you're doing is kind of more of a static group. It's like you focus on stuff that's easily attainable, as opposed to stuff that's in a difficult raid or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, totally. On the flip side, I'm never that guy who's like, I don't have something. Like on ITR, I've got a level 1 like bound to account, like Holy of Righteousness, where I put the Icy Ritual on. So like I have that twink gear that's like great until level 9 or whatever. So going to the new server where I don't have that, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. How am I going to find a good item? So when I found that bow, I was like, yeah, that's it. That solidifies basically everything.
You know, on this first lifer that I just made, I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to craft stuff and invest a lot of resources in, so I found myself going to the pawn shops a lot. You know, don't forget about these. There's a lot of decent gear in there now, especially since the market is so flooded with, like, you know, basic stat items and things like that. You can pull these out of the vendors, out of the pawn shops all day long. So you've got all your market pawn shops, and don't forget about the pawn shops in House D, K, and there's also some in, like, Ataraxia, Inspired Quarter, and Amrath, but those probably are going to be mostly empty these days. And then there's one in Evenings. There's a bunch of Evening Star as well,
Which are probably the most populated these days because they're all right next to each other.
Now, while we're talking about crafting right here, I'm going to put this in here. Because the way the static group is kind of outlined, people are doing different levels of crafting. But if you're going to a new server, I think crafting is probably one of those things that is really vital and really important for a lot of people. I have a secret friend. I don't think it's such a big secret now, but recently was able to return to the game and play on Solana to play with us. And one of the first things that he asked me to do was craft him some miscellaneous things on my crafter. And having that ability to craft some stuff is pretty exciting. And you also have the advantage of when you crush miscellaneous loot that you find, you generate typically more gold than you would get at low levels for selling it. So you're getting those materials to work on your crafting as well as actually earning more plat per quest by crushing. I don't think that holds up forever, and I would be curious to like have somebody like Jeff Hanna or maybe even you, who like is in love with crunchy numbers to find that kind of place. But at least until level 9 or 10, it seems to hold true.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never looked at the numbers for that. I crunched stuff for a long while and then found that I wasn't really crafting anyways, so I kind of stopped crafting in general.
Well, and see, and that's the weird thing. Like, all I've crafted has been arrows. I mean, and the only reason I craft the arrows is to, like, oh, this monster's taking more than a couple of hits to go down. I'm going to switch into an extra D6 or whatever kind of thing. Or, oh, I need a special, like, I'm fighting a fire elemental, let's put on my ice arrows or whatnot. But other than that, I haven't really used the arrow swapping very much. But like I said, I do know a lot of people in the static group are doing things like they're making the rogue traps because they're very, very effective at low levels. They're doing things like crafting fortification items. Obviously, they can't make the heavy fortification items yet, but they can make the moderates, which, when you have nothing, is pretty huge. So, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So, even if you put just a moderate amount of work into it, I think that you'll find that there are some pretty significant rewards in the Cannith crafting system.
Yeah, the other thing I kind of put in here was finding a guild. If you're going with like a specific play style in mind, like Samus, you were doing a static group.
Correct.
I mean, that's going to be a little bit more set, cut and dry. But maybe you don't have a group going into it that you want to join that's doing that. So you might have to find a permadeath, or even find a static group on the forums. They're both certainly options. Let's say otherwise, if you're kind of moving servers, it's going to be kind of tricky, because if you're looking really to kind of build up and then start playing endgame again, starting at low levels, you're probably not going to find an endgame guild necessarily. You might, depending on how big the guild is and what kind of things they do. But you may end up switching guilds. You might find a guild that's really into like leveling and TRing until you get up to a high enough level, and then maybe start looking for a guild that's more into endgame play, if that's what you're looking for. But it's just kind of something to keep in mind.
While we're kind of talking about the guilds and stuff like that, I'm going to throw something in here that's, I think, especially if you're switching servers, that's not on the notes. Your reputation is restarted for the most part. Unless you're somebody like Tobrel, who has basically built up this forum reputation, your server reputation probably isn't going to carry on from server A to server B. There are probably exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, you're starting fresh. So that gives you a lot of advantages to do things right the first time. So all that kind of stuff that we've talked about over the years about developing a good reputation on your server and leveraging that good reputation all comes into play starting over. So even if you made some mistakes and you have a less than stellar reputation, you have a amazing opportunity to both fix that or enhance your reputation, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, and that's especially important when you're trying to get into like an in-game guild or something like that.
Yeah, good point. Anything else you guys can think of maybe when you switch a server, things you might be looking to do we should talk about?
To add to the point that was just made, I've had people over the years contact me and say, I'm just switching to the server, I'm looking for a guild, and if you're going to try to get into a good endgame guild or a good established guild, they're probably going to have some recruiting standards, and your reputation doesn't follow you, so you're going to have to get to know them. Like, I don't care if somebody says, I just moved here from Galanda, I've been playing since beta. Like, you're not getting into our guild unless we know you. So you're going to have to be prepared to get to know some people, build up your reputation, scope out the guilds, and if there's a guild you think you want to join, make sure you're running with those people so they get a chance to know you.
Yeah, good point. I think something else too I kind of threw in here. Depending on, like, if you're playing with some set rules, this might not be an option. But don't discount cross-server trades. You can look to trade stuff on the server you were playing on, or still mostly play on, for stuff on the new server. There is a forum area for that as well. So that's an option as well. You can do
Are shards specific to server?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that was one that I was kind of actually taken back by, because a lot of the DDO store stuff is cross server, but Astral Shards are not.
There you go. That was kind of all I had on this subject. I don't know if you guys want to throw anything else in.
I'd like to go ahead and say, like, depending on your rules for switching and whatnot, really take advantage of like the stuff that you get for free. For example, because I pre-bought the expansions and whatnot, you get certain perks there, XP pots, yada yada yada, stuff like that. Those things are actually pretty useful, especially when you're naked. The other thing that the daily dice is also very, very good. Like, if I was starting totally free of rules and whatnot on a new server at level 1, I don't always get to play every day. In fact, it's almost impossible that I play every day. But I could definitely find 5 minutes to log in and roll my daily dice, and at the very least build up that pile of XP, to get through certain hump levels because you're on an underpowered or undergeared character. The other thing to keep in mind is because you're used to a certain standard on your other server, right? Like, the defense guild is very much basically elite only, epic elite only kind of. I mean, we don't have that as a hard and fast rule, but that's kind of the norm for us now. We've just gotten to that place. But on this new server, elite all the time isn't always working. Like, Jerry wiped us earlier this week on the live stream in, I think, Delira's Part 1. I mean, just killed us all. I mean, we were all dead. And before that, like, our rogue person was blowing up traps left and right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, and it's not his fault, but I mean, there's a lot of different things to consider. To maybe you need to step back your playstyle a little bit, because you're like, well, I'm a great player, I can do this on this difficulty. Well, maybe your character's not ready for that, or maybe it is, and maybe it's a good opportunity for you to bang your head against the wall 10 or 12 times until you get it right. But you need to kind of think about your limitations in regards to the fact that you're very limited. So if to close out that would be my final thought, is like, kind of think about not only what you want to do, what you can do, but what you're likely to succeed at. Because there's nothing worse than going and trying something new, getting your butt handed to you 12 or 15 times in a row, and then you're like, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to go back. I don't even care anymore.
Awesome. With that, we'll move into the post. Just a question for the week. This comes from Udo Fire. What kind of monk do you like better, light or dark?
Oh, clearly light now. For the long time before the recent changes, I would say dark, because Touch of Death was amazing. But now you can have Touch of Death if you want it, and the light stuff, I think. So, or not? That's not true.
You can, because
No, that's not true.
It's required the dark.
No, the dark is, the Touch of Death is bad now. There's a reason why now dark is not as good as light. And now I can't think of what it is. But yeah, right now I'm a light monk.
I've been both. I was a light monk for a long time, and then I went dark and really liked Touch of Death. And then the new enhancements came out, and I'm still dark. Actually, oddly enough, I'm more Henshin than I am either one, because I really like the capstone from the Henshin line. I think dark lends itself better for if you're not in Earth stance and you want to be doing a lot more DPS. I think you can get more out of the Touch of Death, but it's pretty key intensive, which can be a limiting factor. Light has some light is much more of a defensive option, particularly if you want to be like a monk tank. That's a really good way to go.
My wife actually made a point that jarred my brain here for a second. There was a situation, at least for a while, where the Dark Monks were giving negative levels to party members on certain finishes. So there's that, and the reason, and that for whatever reason spawned my realization: you can be a ninja spy, and you don't have to be dark anymore.
Correct.
And that's what I was doing.
There are a
And
few
Ninja
abilities
Spy,
that you have to be dark to use. But
sure, but for the most part, you can be a ninja spy and be light based. So that was the main reason in my mind to always be dark before was ninja spy. Well, now you can be ninja spy without that. So
yeah, and the incorporeality cloak thing was really strong. And again, you don't need to be dark to get that anymore, which is kind of a nice thing.
right. I mean, invisibility at will is also great for what 10 key, basically.
Yeah, something like that. I would say if you're going to be in Earth stance a lot, I would go light for sure, because there's some stuff that really augments the Earth stance in the light tree, in the Shintao tree. I think I still kind of prefer dark over light, but I haven't really played a heavy light monk since the new enhancement system came out. So
Now, also, one last thing, to be super, super fair, and probably Voodoo will jump on me for this, I haven't played a melee monk in, like, probably 6 months. So, I think he's smiling over there. So, I mean, there's that to be said, too. So, take that with a grain of salt, light versus dark. I'm throwing shurikens, so whatever.
if you're throwing shurikens, there's some stuff in the dark tree I think that's pretty good for that. I think there's some, but it's not. Again, it's not dark. You don't have to be dark. It's just in the Ninja Spy tree. There's some
Right.
nice shuriken stuff.
Yeah, and then like I said, Ninja Spy, you can hit that and be light. So
Indeed. And I mean, yeah, you can splash back and forth between the two trees a lot more. I think really it just comes down to the finisher and the capstone, or not the capstone, the tier 5 ability, which I don't even know what it is in the light tree. The dark tree is the touch of death, but I don't remember what tier 5 for light is. At least the one that you have to be light to get.
I'm trying to find the wiki now. It's Shintao, right? Yeah, Shintao.
Yeah, and it's the one where
Phoenix is there. Rise of the
That might be
Phoenix.
it.
Kukondo, which is pretty good actually. Last I checked.
Maybe the
And,
one
yeah,
that's all the way on the left of the tree.
the empty-handed, the empty fist, taking your weapon dies up another, going from a D6 to a D8.
No, that's not it.
I'll say that seems fine. Yeah, I don't know. It must
It's
be
Rise of the Phoenix is the one that it is.
Let's
So
see if
you
I
have
look
to be
over in-
light. You have to be light to get Rise of the Phoenix because the other things that are there
Right.
require you. The prereqs require you to be light. So
Yeah.
that's really when you're talking about light or dark. That's really the difference. Is do you want? I think the light finisher enhancements are better because they're all curative. And I always found myself using the light finisher a lot more often than I've ever used the dark finisher. I think Touch of Death is a little better than Rise of the Phoenix, personally. Although
I probably agree.
Rise of the Phoenix, if you have it, can be useful, for sure. Coming back to life is always a good thing. So, yeah, when you're talking about if you like light or dark, probably dark, just because you can get Touch of Death over Rise of the Phoenix, which is a lot more DPS. But
Right.
the healing finisher is pretty nice too.
I would also throw out there in Shintao, and I think you have to be, requires Bastion of Purity. These elemental curatives that you're kind of talking about, like difficulty at the beginning, lifting the veil, restoring the balance, reset the verse, those are extremely useful, especially with our conversation before about starting on a new server where you don't have a lot of resources. But even now, like, I use restoring the balance, which removes his curse, almost not constantly, but like I don't even buy curse pots anymore. Really, I just use that. So I mean, it's something to think about.
My
to be
druid
honest.
is when I get to my druid, I'm gonna add one more level of monk to give it 17 druid, 3 monk, just so that I can get that.
Right.
Just so I can have the positive finisher and have it remove curses.
Yeah, it's just it's huge. It can't be understated how great that is.
Indeed. Well, do you guys have anything else to add before we wrap this thing up here?
No, I just throw some love out to the DDO Cocktail Hour. We had our Gen Con break, and I imagine that means probably sometime in the next week or so we'll put out another show, assuming Lessa can get out of bed to actually record a show. And I would also like to throw people to, if you're interested in Magic the Gathering, as well as like miscellaneous shenanigans, swing over by my website at samusgrobo.com. Other than that, I mean, whatever you guys to do. I appreciate being on.
Voodoo, do you want to plug your YouTube channel?
Voodoo Spice on YouTube. I've got a series of videos that talk about my caster healer quasi tank druid build.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for being on the show, and thanks to everyone for listening to the show. Thanks to other guests and contributors we got going on. Really appreciate all those guys. And even those that are not able to for our season, I still appreciate what they've done in the past. Thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making the game, and for Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show or you just say hi, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates there. Closing tip for the week. Wheeler Cub, if you're looking for a way to quickly level up a character, you can run the outdoor areas of Stardust Island beginning at level 4. XP you get from rare encounters, locations, and kills is very impressive. And I'm just going to say that's a great tip for pretty much any level. The outdoor areas can be pretty good, particularly with the Slayer pots that go on now. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and if you're coming to PAX, don't forget to join us at the Rock Bottom Brewery at 9 p.m. on Friday, August 29th. Thanks, guys.
Lots of hand sanitizer.